Hey now, and welcome down to KCToyreviews. We are here today with Scissorhands by Art Figures, aka Edward Scissorhands from the famous Tim Burton movie. Now, unfortunately, this figure is plagued with quality control issues, but as always, let's go ahead, fine-comb those details, hold each other's hands, and dive right the hell goddamn in. Chippy chop chops. Alright, so here we are with Edward Scissorhand, or shall we say Scissorhands, by Art Figures. Keep in mind there also is another version on the way by Present Toys, and it basically looks like your chubby younger brother who stuck his fingers into an electrical socket because it just looked ridiculous. The head sculpt looked ridiculous. I was pretty perplexed that anybody would choose that one. However, after having this one in hand, like I said in the beginning of this video, there are some major quality control issues. And for starters, as we dive right into this thing, let's take the belt around the waist here. For some reason, Art Figures thought that it would be necessary for us to install the belt and some belts around his leg. Now, I don't know about you, but I am not in the Build-A-Bear mode. After I paid $180 for a 1/6 scale figure, I expect them to show up already assembled. And it is very strange because there's a lot of looped belts around this guy, so why did they make us do the one around the waist? And I will show you 3 around the leg that were near impossible to do, instead of just installing everything before they sent it to us. And the same goes for the fingers. On this hand here and this one over here, I think it came with maybe 2 or 3 fingers installed, and then the other ones you had to plug in via a little ball joint. Again, not a pleasant process, and I'll zoom in on the hands later and show you some atrocities around the hand, but it's just strange that everything wasn't pre-installed, and as I was putting in the other little scissors and the ball joints, randomly, the pressure perhaps on the other hand, some of them were falling out back and forth. So overall, it was not a pleasant process building this guy. And of course, before we dive into anything else, on the positive side, it clearly looks really good in shot here. There are some quality control issues that we'll zoom into later, but as far as the shelf presence, it looks fantastic. I love the head sculpt. I do think it has a great likeness to Johnny Depp. There is some giraffeism going on with the head sculpt and the neck that we can kind of point out later, but in this shot, it does look pretty fantastic. And I dig the layers of belts and mechanical pieces. And then again, that head sculpt is really, really good. Now again, just to admire this head sculpt, I do like the sculpted hair. 100% preferable over the Present Toys electrical socket, ridiculous poofy hairstyle that they went with. I think this is nice, and it's kind of sculpted in that really classic look that Johnny Depp had. The skin tones are pretty good. There's a slight glisten to the eyes, and then of course all the scratches over his face. All in, they did a really good job with this head sculpt. And again, just to stress, the paint application with the skin tone, the dark eyes, the transition, and the gradients throughout all of it is really, really fantastic. Now, I'm going to try to do this part by hand, so forgive me if it's a little shaky, but I really wanted to show off the fantastic sculpted hair on this guy. It's very, very, I don't even know how I say this, like layered almost. I'm not even sure if the camera's really doing this thing justice, but there's like layers on this thing where I gotta think that this is in 3 or 4 separate pieces. There's that much depth to this sculpted hair on this guy, so I really think it's a fantastic job. And maybe you can't see it too much on camera. Earlier I was thinking it just had this really giraffe-ish looking neck, so much so that I was looking if I could remove one of the extenders or something, but again, through the shot, it really doesn't look that bad, so I'm not gonna gripe too much about it. But perhaps anybody can comment below, see if they see what I'm seeing there. But I do see a little bit too long of a neck going on there. But if you kind of angle it down like this, I'm going to smack him in the face. It doesn't look that bad. Now, onward to the meat of the operation, of course, that is the scissor hands. Every single scissor that you see is kind of articulatable. I guess this big one is here. Oh, I lied. Maybe that big one isn't, but you kind of move these ones in the back here. Some of these ones, as I said, I put in individually, even the little thumb piece here. Now, the unfortunate and hideous part of the show are these little, yeah, that's right, I'm going to use another 1/6 scale hand to point it out here. These gray, hideous, what do we even call it? Mechanical pieces that are supposed to be around his wrist. Now, before I bash on these little pieces, it's hard to kind of explain, but when you try to articulate the hand, it's connected to these wrist piece that's connected around the wrist here. So if for some reason this comes in an odd position on the peg and you need to spin it, you need to hold everything, spin this piece and the hand, or these pieces will twist and break. Hopefully that made sense, and of course if you have the figure, you probably know what I'm talking about. Again, just a bash on these pieces, they just look really awful. They are a terrible, very flimsy, crappy looking 3D printed piece. Basically, if you've ever built a Gundam, they look like the pieces that hold in the actual 3D pieces. I'm almost shocked how bad these pieces look right here, because the hand in the scissors, they really don't look that bad. I think it actually kind of looks nice, other than the fact that I had to build it myself. But the fact that you can articulate 4 out of the 5 fingers, I think it's overall a nice handpiece. It just truly gets tarnished by these piece of crap gray lines in the back there. Just crappy gray lines. They don't even look like mechanical pieces. Just awful. Now, onward to the suit. Well, dare I say, this thing is doomed in the long run. Each one of these, almost smacked them over there. Each one of these little belts that's wrapped around them here are very, very thin, and depending on the climate and your humidity, they are probably going to fall apart over the coming years. Next up to that, we have this really plastic, flimsy kind of material underneath here. I'm not sure what to think of it. My first thought, again, on this was just it's going to deteriorate over time. Now, I seem to be plagued with issues with my third-party figures, as people say, but this shoulder piece right here is already starting to fall off. I'll show you down below, there's a piece on the leg that's fallen off. And then when I opened up the box, there are also 2 mystery pieces that I have no goddamn clue where they go. So, continuing to harp on those quality control issues, like I said, if this thing is falling apart out of the box, we have thin leather, pleather-ish type materials, this plastic-ish arm over here. I truly think that this thing is doomed over time. You're going to really have to take care of the materials and keep it in a safe, guarded place. And to just take a look at the right hand before we take a zoom out again, same thing with those ugly gray pieces over here. And from my memory, all of these could move, I lied again. I guess one finger just doesn't move on each side, but all the other fingers do indeed move over here, even the thumb. And then we have that same type of plasticky, pleatherish, weird material around the arm here. Almost kind of reminds me of like a garbage bag material. And then I did have this piece here fall off. My guess is it's actually supposed to be on somewhere, but looks like I'm flicking off the camera. Sorry, let's use this one. My guess is it's actually supposed to be on here, but unfortunately it is not. As we make our way down again, let's remind ourselves we had to put this belt on. It was a pain in the ass. And then we had 3 belts on the leg here that we were supposed to put on. And I don't know about everybody else. Maybe it's just my giant hands. I could not get these things on. You actually have to loop them through here, and it was ridiculously hard. So, where we're supposed to have 3 belts on the leg here, please keep in mind the rest of this review, I was unable to get those on there. You should be able to get them on. Perhaps it's my big fat hands, or it is possible it's going to be difficult for everybody. Now, last but not least, we have this fantastic stand. Everybody's been kind of raving about it, and I do agree. The gears look great. We have a branded Scissorhand logo on the front, a crotch grabber stand, and yeah, it's kind of your stereotypical hot toy-ish stand. But I'm not complaining. I do like it. They painted it. They added all the gears. It is a 100% compliment and bonus to this figure. And for anybody that cares, we do have some articulation down here at the ankles. Not bad. The boots are, actually, let's zoom in a little bit. Yeah, I mean, those boots are pretty badass. I mean, the tips are weathered, slightly different on each boot. Great articulation. Overall, there's not too much to complain about, and I don't think anybody's going to articulate this guy like crazy. It's worth noting, he clearly has double-jointed knees and elbows, but we're not going to be putting this guy into cannonball poses and doing too much with him. But if there's any fear of articulation, you can basically do whatever the hell you want with him. As long as it's not weird and creepy, do whatever you want. And there we have it. Scissorhands by Art Figures. Now, again, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video and several times throughout, there are some quality control issues here, especially some future ones to be very nervous about. Now, put that all aside, the head sculpt is fantastic, the shelf presence and the overall look of the figure is great, and dare I say, this might be one of the best versions of Edward Scissorhand in a 1/6 scale format currently on the market. Unless the present toy's chubby face, poofy hair version gets tweaked, I still think this is going to be the far superior version. We have quite a bit of layers here, but unfortunately within those layers and all those pleatherish leather belts, we have some major quality control issues, and as I showed you through the video, some of them are already starting to come apart. Obviously, we need to weigh price point into this, and well, to be honest, for $180, my expectations would be that none of this should fall apart out of the box. And to remind you once again, I had a couple little mystery pieces that fell out that I still have no idea where they came from. I think the hands are pretty awesome. Clearly, they are the star of the show, second to the head sculpt, but there was a little bit of issues plugging those things into the ball joints, and as I tinkered with them, sometimes they would indeed fall out. But get them into the right position and they look pretty badass. And then of course on top of all this, you have this really fantastic crotch grabber gear-ish stand with a Scissorhand branded name on it. And well, when you do pair that all for $180, yeah, there's some pieces falling off, but I would say the overall value is there. This is a pretty decent piece. My first impressions were, is this thing a piece of crap? And well, I don't think it's a piece of crap. There's some major quality control issues. And one thing that is a piece of crap is those little gray gear line things around his hand and stuff. I mean, and there's a couple of pieces on the back of his shin there also. Those out of everything on this figure are the most horrendous looking piece I've ever seen on a 1/6 scale figure. They look like just like scraps that are from some piece of crap Gundam project, as I mentioned earlier. And I mean, I really just want to stress, they are horrendous looking. I just am shocked that they even put those things on there. And again, as I echoed in the beginning, the overall shelf presence is absolutely fantastic. I think it's becoming more and more evident as it spins in front of me because yes, there's a lot of details here and it clearly is reminiscent of Johnny Depp in the classic Edward Scissorhands movie, directed by none other than Tim Burton. So to have one of the best versions of Edward Scissorhands on our shelf in a 1/6 scale version, reminding us of a classic movie, well, you really can't go wrong, especially for that price point. And I think with all that said, it's a perfect segue into a score on this guy, and well, actually what's coming to mind is a 7.9 out of 10. I think had some of these pieces not fallen off right off the bat, and I didn't even see that, it probably would have been a little bit higher, but I am very nervous that over time it's going to deteriorate and fall apart. So I think with that, it makes me pull the score down a little bit. Shelf presence, as I've mentioned several times, it's there. It's Johnny Depp, it's clearly Edward Scissorhands. The Build-A-Bear piece where I had to put the belts on the leg and the rest of the scissors and the ball joints on the hand, well, I could have done without that. Art figures, I don't know what the hell you guys are smoking, but having us assemble a figure of this caliber is absolutely ridiculous. And just to stress one more time, the left leg should have 3 belts on it. I was completely unable to get the other 2 belts on there. I was only able to get one of the 3 belts. So, at a 7.9 and $180, do I suggest this piece? Well, yeah, actually, I do suggest it. I think it's a decent piece. As long as you're not tinkering with it too much, I don't think it's going to fall apart in your hands. The main concern is the longevity of this figure. But if you're a fan of Tim Burton, Johnny Depp, or especially Edward Scissorhands, then you would be crazy not to get this piece because, as I've said, it is probably now the best 1/6 scale version of Edward Scissorhands on the market, even beating out the chubby face, puffy hair present toys, which isn't currently out yet, but again, I think we all know in the community, this one is definitely still going to be better. And with all that said, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here today at KC Toys. 7.9 out of 10. Edward Scissorhands, slight giraffe neck, but fantastic head sculpt, great articulation, great shelf presence, and well, you can't beat that hand. And as I do this next part, you know something's going to get messed up on this guy. Catch you guys next time. KC Toys out. Yeah!